I'm Larry Longua. I'm a clinical associate professor at New York University. I'd like to share a couple of thoughts based on a couple of articles that I read recently. Last weekend of February 9th and 10th, in the Financial Times, there was a article on real estate, which obviously got my attention. This is my field of endeavor and the subjects that I teach. But it had an article that indicated that in the United States, regional shopping centers have been negatively affected by technology, people shopping online, and about 15% of regional centers in the United States will fail over the next 5 years. And I read the article and I agree with it, but I also thought too that in addition to technology, might even be, and probably is, a demographic component. Surely the next day there was an article in Bloomberg Businessweek's magazine, and it was entitled "The Reproductive Recession," and it had a subtitle which was kind of a teaser, and it said, "With birth rates falling, the world is getting very old very fast, and should we panic or should we celebrate?" Well, to kind of compress it, the upshot was that this is something that we should definitely celebrate, okay, because the secret to wealth isn't more young people, it's more productive people, and this lower birth rate would give women greater freedom, better health, opportunities for themselves, for their children, and the baby bust is not something to fear. Again, it's something to celebrate. And implicit in this, or maybe it's something that I inferred, was that human beings, it's a mindset that human beings are kind of an affliction on the planet, and if there are fewer of them, then we're going to be better off. Now, the thing that struck me is that if you go back to the 14th century after the plague, I don't think that we could say that Europe was better off as a result of having 1/3 of their population wiped out. And if this baby bust is something we should celebrate, then I would ask the question of the author, Mr. Kenny, why countries such as Great Britain and Japan and Russia and France and Canada and Germany and Bulgaria and on are subsidizing or actually paying women to have babies. What do they know that Mr. Kenny doesn't know? Also, in my own lifetime, watching the population of the United States increase from 132 to 311 million, and the global population from 2.3 to 7 billion, can anyone say that we are worse off, that we have more poverty, that we are sicker as a result of that? I don't think so. One can argue whether the empty shopping centers and low birth rates are causative or correlative. I think that there's a little bit of each, but I do think that low birth rates are somewhat causative of what's happening. Just among OECD countries, if you take age 65, we're currently at 15% of the population. By 2050, we will be at 27%. If we take a look at people over 80, we go from 2.5% to 9%. That's meaningful, and does not include China. China right now, or in 5 years, will have more old people than children. Now, over the last 5 years, the population increased by 33 million people, not because 6 million people a year were born, but because people just got older. And this is an important point to remember when you think about the Chinese trend of consumption and labor output over the last few decades, because going forward it's going to be very different, because every year there are going to be fewer producers and there are going to be more consumers. Now, I contrast the current demographic trends, or the perception of the trends, with John Mueller's Redeeming Economics, and he attempts, I believe, with some effectiveness, in demonstrating that rather than children liberating people and being positive, Mueller says that fewer people means less wealth generation. I may be wrong, but I think that the numbers are going the wrong way for the global economy. At least it's worth a consideration, because if I am not wrong, we're building homes that people won't live in, office buildings that people won't work in, and shopping centers that people won't shop in. And I think that we should be concerned because in Europe and Asia, I think that we are already past the tipping point.